So I wanted to share with you an approach that I use a lot in my work. It's an evidence-based approach called acceptance and commitment therapy. And I use it in my coaching practice, but also in my life. And it is obviously an approach which has great amount of evidence therapeutically, but as a growing body of evidence in the workplace and in our lives. So what is ACT? If you're aware of cognitive behavioral therapy, it's a behavioral therapy, in that grouping. What it is really about is about developing skills which help us to create a bit of space in order to make conscious decisions, to break out of the autopilot that we often find ourselves in, and create a little bit of capacity to make conscious decisions. So moving from reacting to consciously responding. It also helps us with skills to deal with some of our challenging thoughts and feelings, which we might find uncomfortable. So different ways that we can relate to that. And importantly, it also works with values. So it helps us to identify what is most important to us, and then ways that we can take committed action. So what I wanted to share with you today is something called the Hexaflex. So the thing that when we are, using ACT, what we are kind of aiming to do in ourselves, or if I'm working with a client, is to develop this thing called psychological flexibility. And what psychological flexibility is the ability to, when life throws kind of the rubbish that it does at us, that we're able to respond to a way, instead of being kind of very fixed and get very stuck and getting pulled into things. Actually, we do have a little bit of space to think, okay, how do I really want to consciously respond to this in a way that reflects the person that I truly am? So it gives us, a skill which helps us to do this conscious and flexible responding to the stuff that life gives us. So there are 6 processes that go on, and this is getting into a little bit of the geekiness. But that first process is being present. So the first step is really being in the moment, being aware, being conscious of what's going on, and the ways that we can develop that skill, whether it's through traditional mindfulness and meditation, or just an awareness, just that ability to kind of click out of whatever we've got sucked into and come back to being present, being in our body maybe, and just being in that moment. Secondly, it's about acceptance, and I think this is such an important part of ACT, because it's something that we aren't taught as we grow up. How do we deal with those challenging thoughts and feelings and sensations that we as humans naturally experience? So I think that the tools within ACT that help us with accepting ourselves as human, accepting the human experience, and then what we can do with those, I think, are incredibly powerful. The third process, getting my total geek on now, is self as context. And what this is about is a separation between our thoughts, our thinking mind, and an observing self. So it's acknowledging that we can see our thoughts as something separate from ourselves. So we are not our thoughts. And that leads on to this idea of diffusion. So ACT has tools within it that help you to disconnect from those thoughts. So be able to look at them and relate to them in a different way, rather than kind of getting sucked into there, where they might be wanting to take you. And the last kind of element is all around values. So 5 and 6, values, clarifying what matters most to us. So values being those things that are the ways that we want to show up, the things that are most important to us, those characteristics that really make us us more than anything else. So ACT can really help you to identify those values and then to take committed action in line with those values, which I think is, incredibly powerful. So yeah, obviously I'm really passionate about ACT, both in my coaching practice, where I deliver training for coachees. So please contact me if you're interested in that, but also in my life, for myself, and in my practice. So I hope that introduction to ACT has been useful, and obviously do contact me if you would like to know more.